Mark Watts, elitefts.com. I'm here at the Spot Athletics in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm here with Derek Millender, who is the head strength and conditioning coach at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Derek, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Thank you.
Talk to us a little bit about your journey. You've had an extensive internship experience, going through a bunch of different universities up to this point. Talk about the journey and who are the most influential people to help you get where you are right now.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, my journey started about 10 years ago. I actually started in the personal training realm, and I did that for just a short time before I was able to run into a great friend now that was a training partner of mine that introduced me to Ronnie McKeefery, who's now doing an amazing job with just integrating just young coaches of how to be the CEO strength coach, which is a book that he has coming out soon. But so I was personal training, and then I actually interviewed for a really prestigious internship opportunity at the University of South Florida in Tampa. And I wind up getting accepted into the internship program, and then I was trying to bust my butt, do a good job, ask questions, complete the assignments that Coach Mack had for us. So when opportunity came, he would come to the strength coaches and say, you know what, you've done a good job. I have an opportunity for you to interview with the Cleveland Indians. And at the time, my passion was still, basketball. Even though I was, working football with Coach Mack, basketball was something that I've always wanted to do. I say, you know what, it's an opportunity for me to have my own team. I'm going to go forward hard. And then I interviewed for the job, and I wind up getting it. So I started in the minor leagues for the Cleveland Indians, and I did that for 2 years. And then from there, my boss, Tim Maxey, he's the head strength and conditioning coach for Major League Baseball. At the time, he was the head strength coach, for the Cleveland Indians. Right. So I was there working for him, and he said, hey, one of my neighbors in my neighborhood actually is looking for a strength coach at Cleveland State University. Yes. And he was asking me this during the middle of our season. I mean, this is July. Right. And if anybody knows Tim Maxey, he's really big on loyalty. Sir. And the best job is the one that you have. Yeah. So when Tim presented the idea for me to leave during the middle of the season to go to Cleveland State, I thought it was a test of my loyalty. I said, no, no, Tim. I said, I appreciate it. Maybe after the season is something I'll consider. But, right now I have 2 more months left. I can't do that. Right. And he says, Derek, you need to listen to me. I think this is a great opportunity for you. I know you want to get your master's. I know you have a passion for basketball. This is a great opportunity for you to run your own program. You have 17 sports. I think it's something you should consider.
You knew it was best.
Yeah. So, I thought about it, and, during the middle of my season, he said, okay, there's a day in the schedule coming up next week. If it fits Cleveland State's schedule, I'll allow you to go down there and interview and then come back, don't make any decisions, we'll talk from there. Yeah. So I wound up going to Cleveland State, and I interviewed with the athletic department. It was an amazing experience, and I walked away from it feeling like, wow, I got to make a decision, Yeah. So I go back to Tim and I explain to him the situation, what the offer is, and, I had his blessing, to take it if I wanted. So I wound up taking that job, and I wound up working there for 4 years. My major responsibility was men's and women's basketball, but I also had, 14 other sports, that I was responsible for. So I did that for 4 years, had a great experience, got an opportunity, to cut my teeth, writing programs for a variety of different programs, not just basketball, what I love, but I also had to build the program, for soccer, for volleyball. I had to work with, men and women, so that was a great, experience for me. And then from there, I had the opportunity, while I was working there, I would, volunteer for the Cleveland Cavaliers, whenever they needed, an extra hand, during training camp and before Summer League. So I did that for a couple of years. And then the head strength coach at the time, Stan Kellers, he was like, hey, if you ever thought about coming to work for me, because I have a position that may be coming available. So I wind up, coming over to the Cavs as his assistant, for 3 years. And then now where we sit, I'm the head strength coach, and this is going into my third season in that role.
That's a great story. It's a great lesson in loyalty and hard work and working yourself to the right position at the right time. So talk a little bit about with the athletes you're working with right now. You're in a transition right now. As during this interview, it's kind of the summer. Talk to me about your communication with some of those athletes, what they're doing when they're not with you, and then what's the next step when they do report if you have different athletes from free agency and rookies, what's your kind of process to get them acclimated to the program that you're running?
I think the big challenge in the first thing you have to do as a strength coach is establish a relationship with the player. And establishing that relationship isn't about showing them, how smart you are or how fit you are in the weight room. You really have to find a connection with that athlete. Sure. And in the professional level, it starts there first. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we draft a young guy. First thing I want to do is have a sit-down conversation with them and just hear about, their family dynamics. I want to know about, what kind of home they grew up in, what kind of economic background they come from, mm-hmm. All those things where I'm learning, what makes this person tick, what they've gone through, to get here, right. So that helps me, drive them, when I need to. And also I can be sympathetic with them, if I see that they have something going on or, so that's very important to me first and foremost is just establishing that relationship, that rapport that they know that I care about them as a person, yes, sir. And I'm not just looking at them as, an asset. And then from there, I'm able to show the athletes, a very important part of your development is going to be, screening, to collect baseline numbers and incorporate that, with your injury history to put together the best personalized program for you. So, my big sales pitch is the words we should use is that, your program is going to be individualized for you, based on, your injury history, and how you play and what the coaches have for you. Right. And that's how it starts, and if that athlete doesn't have a background in the weight room, then I'm not going to force that on them. Right. Then we're going to do more, body weight, movements. Sure. We're going to utilize bands. We're going to utilize, cables. All the different things that's going to be less, invasive for them. Sure. That they won't feel threatened or look silly, in that environment. I think that's the big thing, with my professional guys is I have to protect their confidence. So I know that if they're not familiar with something, I don't want to present that new challenge to them around their peers where they could potentially look silly. So you always want to try to make them feel like, they're in control and they're the professional because they are, in what they do. So throughout the course of a long season, if we're fortunate, I'm just continue to build a relationship and add more exercises to the individualized program. Hopefully that guy doesn't get hurt at all so they continue to trust me and know that what we're doing is working. It's important that we retest throughout the season. Mm-hmm. Instead of calling it testing, we try to call it performance monitoring because right. it's less threatening. And we try to pick the most practical, things to do in season, that we can test, their numbers to make sure that everything's aligned and they're not gonna, get hurt, from some overuse injury or some major imbalance.
And when you're talking about that, I think those are some of the lessons that a lot of younger strength coaches feel that it's sets and reps and it is about those relationships. And finishing off, with the last question, what is some of the best advice that you got as a young strength coach? Because you did really pay your dues to get where you are now. But there's a lot of young strength coaches out there that want to be where you're at. What's the best advice that you got? And what's the best advice you can give to those young strength coaches?
I think the best advice I can give them is that it's not about you getting your gratification. It's about doing what's best for the athlete. As strength coaches, we're all ambitious, when we read and we always, looking what other guys are doing. And we're like, well, I want to do that. I want to say my guys are deadlifting this. I want to say my guys are cleaning this. But is that gratifying you or is that gratifying the athlete? So I think that's the big thing for me. I always have to just, remind myself that, I'm doing what's best for that athlete. So that may be, a body weight exercise, that may be a corrective exercise that's weighted. That may be, just having a conversation with the guy about, what's going on in their personal life. And that may be what that person needed. So 2 days from now, you can actually get in a traditional lift. So I think that's the big deal is just to make sure that you're serving the athlete and not serving your own, ego,
Yeah, and that's sometimes it's tough to do,
Yeah.
and I know that's a challenge. Well, the fact that you're down here in Columbus on professional development says a lot about you, and just a little bit of time we were able to spend together says a lot about you and your character. And again, we wish you the best of luck in everything you do, Derek, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.